Welcome to Access Ann Arbor. I'm Gloria Brooks, President and CEO of Arbor Hospice. And since 1984, Arbor Hospice has been serving our community, providing quality, compassionate care for people with life-limiting illness and their families. We're an independent, nonprofit hospice organization, and we're integrated into the community through our experienced staff and caring volunteers. We provide certified hospice services and a vast array of grief support and community education programs. Arbor Hospice services 7 counties in southeast Michigan: Jackson, Lenawee, Washtenaw, Wayne, Oakland, and Jackson, with offices here in Ann Arbor, as well as Plymouth, Woodhaven, and Monroe. The residence of Arbor Hospice is a facility located on the west side of Ann Arbor with 26 private rooms, and we care for about 10% of the patients we see every year at our inpatient hospice facility. The Arbor Hospice Foundation provides philanthropic support for the uninsured in our community who need hospice services but don't have an ability to pay, and also our grief support services and our pediatric hospice care. Part of our mission at Arbor Hospice is to educate the community on end-of-life issues and advanced care planning. And today we'll be talking about National Healthcare Decisions Day. Do you know what healthcare treatments you would want if you were unable to speak for yourself? And do your loved ones or other members of your family know what your wishes are? Do you know what your spouse or partner would want if they were unable to communicate with you about your care wishes? Research shows that most people have definite opinions about how they would want to be cared for, but only 30% of us have taken the time to write those care wishes down. So 60% of us don't have the experience that we want. An advance directive is a legal document that outlines the care, the type of care that a person would want, and it legally names another person to make care decisions for you in the event that you can no longer communicate those wishes to your healthcare provider. And as part of Arbor Hospice's commitment to public education, we are joining other national, statewide, and local organizations to highlight the importance of advanced healthcare decision making in honor of National Healthcare Decision Day, which is coming up on Monday, April 16th. And National Healthcare Decision Day is an initiative across the country designed to encourage all of us to express our wishes regarding healthcare and for providers and facilities to respect those wishes regardless of the decisions that we communicate. With me today are 2 members of our community to talk about advanced care directives. First, I'd like to introduce Ed Goldman. Ed is an attorney and also an associate professor at the University of Michigan Health System. Welcome, Ed.
Thank you.
And next is Karen Gowden, a nurse by discipline, and Karen is the clinical director for the residents of Arbor Hospice. Welcome.
Thank you, Gloria.
Ed, I would like to ask you, talk to the audience about what an advance directive is and what is included in an advance directive.
Well, the name actually describes what you need to know. It is an advance directive, which means you make it in advance of incapacity or illness. So it's a document you write when you're healthy that says what you want when you are ill and can't make decisions for yourself. There are 2 kinds. One is called a living will, where what you say is, this is what I would like. And the other is called a durable power of attorney, and it not only says what you would like, but it names somebody to act on your behalf, an advocate. Okay. Durable means it survives incompetency, power means right, and attorney means anybody over the age of 18 who can act on your behalf.
Wonderful. So what are some of the questions folks should consider?
Well, this is a serious document, and so you have to think very carefully about what you might want if you were ill. You have to think about your family. You have to talk to your family. And we have on this slide a series of questions. Really, they have to do with what are your values, and what would you want if you were seriously ill and it was likely that you would recover, or seriously ill and it was not likely that you would recover. So you have to think about what level of care you would like, what status is important to you, and what your values are in relationship to your friends and families.
And so it's a legal document. Does it need to be notarized or prepared by an attorney?
While it's a legal document, it is very easy to create. It doesn't have to be prepared by an attorney. It doesn't have to be notarized. And hospitals, healthcare facilities, Arbor Hospice all has examples of documents that you can create.
I think that's one of the most common questions I get out in the community is, don't I have to have a lawyer do it? And it prevents some people from moving it forward. So it's good to know, for our audience to know, that they don't have to do that. Get them for free.
And actually, if you wait to have a lawyer do it, it's probably when you're writing your testamentary will, and that's probably too late, because there are many people who want to have these documents and don't want to wait until they need to worry about their estate.
So how do I decide who should make these health care decisions for me if I'm not able to do so myself?
Well, it can be anybody over the age of 18. It can be a family member. It can be a friend. It can be somebody that you know. It has to be somebody that you trust. It has to be somebody that you've had conversations with so that they know what you would want. And it has to be somebody who is willing to advocate on your behalf and who will honor your wishes. It doesn't have to be a family member if you don't want it to be, although most people use a family member.
So Karen, give an example of a family that has had them or not had them, and how that impacts their loved one.
Well, I think the questions that Ed has posed for you are excellent questions to ask yourself when you're looking at what you want for yourself when you cannot make decisions for yourself. I've had many experiences where, unfortunately, people didn't have those conversations with their loved ones or their friends, and to see the agony and the anxiety and the stress that it causes family members and friends is very difficult. We don't realize the impact that that makes on a family to have to make those decisions when they haven't had a discussion with you. And when we are children or friends, we often think about what we would want, not about what you would want. And so that makes it very difficult for your loved ones to have to make those decisions. And so it's a great gift to give to your family and friends when you make those decisions prior to needing them.
Prior to the crisis. So that really is, when is an advance directive needed?
Before you need it.
That's the key thing. Before you think you need it. That's
Before
right.
you think you need it.
Yeah.
You know, one of the tragedies is young people get into motor vehicle accidents. If you're 25, you think you're immortal, and you never write one of these. That's exactly when you need it. So the answer is you need it now, and that's why we have things like National Decision Day. That's why we have the opportunity to easily think about, now, when I say easily, this is not an easy conversation to have with family members, but to think about these documents in advance of need. You know, you asked Karen about stories. As attorney for the University of Michigan Hospital, I had a case where a gentleman was brought into the emergency room, and his family all came in, and the only thing they could agree on was they didn't like each other. And he didn't have an advance directive, so there was no family member who could say, I get to speak for Dad.
And that just, I think, underlies the challenges for a family. Yeah. It's hard enough when you're not in crisis, but when you are, and some event has precipitated needing one, that is not the time to sit and figure out what the needs are. Share an example of that, Karen.
Well, a story I'd like to tell you is about, you asked the question, when is the right time to do advanced care directives? And really, there is no age that is too young to talk about it. I had an experience where a young woman who was in high school had some friends that were killed in an automobile accident. And so over that next summer, she had discussion with her parents about what that meant to her, and if she was incapacitated, what she would want in that circumstance or in those type of circumstances. And so it ended up through an unfortunate medical incident that she ended up in those with that life-threatening illness. And as difficult as it was for her parents, because they'd had that conversation with her, it was much easier for them to allow her to die a natural, peaceful, and comfortable death. And she was 16.
Yeah.
So let me just make one point. Because she was 16, she could have the conversation with her parents, but she couldn't write a legally valid document because you have to be 18. But it's the conversation that's just as important as a document. It's your loved ones knowing what you would want. When my wife and I had this conversation with our daughter, and she said, I don't want to hear about this, and we said, but you need to, and by the end of the conversation, she understood.
She understood why. And I think that's the piece, especially for those of us sandwich generation folks, where we are still caring for our own families, working, but we're having to make those healthcare decisions for our aging parents and for our spouses and partners. And so to, you know, Karen referenced this as a gift. It truly is a gift to get this out of the way when it's not a crisis and really have a conversation, because chances are good everybody in that family will want something different. And if you don't have it written down, everybody has to guess. And so that's not the best way to approach such a serious scenario. And again, all the family dynamics that come to fruition in those kind of crises. So what happens if somebody doesn't have an advance directive and becomes incapacitated? From a legal perspective, what happens?
Well, technically, only a spouse can speak for an adult.
Okay.
And otherwise, you have to go to court and become legal guardian. Now, oftentimes hospitals say, look, if all the families in agreement, we'll listen to you. But it just creates a legal problem that you don't need to have. And as I say, if the family is in dispute, there's certainly a problem. The other way it's very helpful is in same-sex couples, because if they're not legally married in a state other than Michigan, they have no legal rights at all unless they have an advance directive.
So again, another important impact that folks might not think about. But I think the other piece in terms of sudden illness, recognizing it can happen to us at any age, you know, you don't want to think of it from a morbid perspective, but we hear every day about car accidents and different things that happen, and without this, again, truly, the family is left trying to figure out what do I think they would want, and how hard it is to make those decisions. Karen, from a perspective of a nurse, have you witnessed a patient that has had to be intubated or resuscitated when this wasn't clearly defined and there wasn't consensus among the family on what to do?
In my 35-year nursing career, I've seen many instances where a family had discussion, but only one member of the family had the discussion with the patient, and the rest of the family weren't in agreement. And because it hadn't been written down, it caused great strife and anxiety in the family, because they all had different opinions. And often when our loved one has a sudden illness, we look at it on how it's going to affect us, or what the impact of that loss is going to mean to us. And it can cause a lot of arguing or stress within that family unit, because we all come from different places and we all come from different experiences. And so those family members had to struggle with a lot of guidance from the medical team, but really some patients underwent procedures or treatments that they did not wish to have because the family could not come to an agreement.
And that's a real problem. If you are in a hospital, especially if the hospital doesn't know you, the mantra is when in doubt, treat. And that may not be what you want. But if the hospital doesn't know and if there's no one to speak for you,
Right.
Yeah.
that's the default.
And I think it's why it's so critical to let your physician know that you have one of these, let the facility that you're receiving care from or the hospital know that you have one. We'll talk about the tool that Arbor Hospice uses in the community, but one of the things I most like about it is it gives you a little wallet-sized card to put and tuck in so that if there is a reason that somebody needs to know if you have one, they can find it. And so you're not relying on a family member to meet you at the hospital and bring it, because again, in the urgency of the moment and during a crisis, that's probably the last thing you're thinking of. I need to go find the paperwork. There's other more pressing things to focus on. So I think that's an important piece. Now, another question I get often from the community is, what happens if I complete my advance directive and then I later change my mind? I want to ask you that question, and then we'll talk about what to do with it when I complete it.
When you complete it. So if you complete it, you need to think about it every once in a while. Again, this is difficult, but once a year you pull it out, you look at it, you make sure it still says what you want. There may be something in your life that's changed. There may be something that you want to change. They are very easy to change. They are very easy to revoke, and they're very easy to write.
Okay, so that's an important piece. And how do I create this advance directive? Where does somebody get one?
The State Bar has free copies. Michigan Medical Society has free copies. Arbor Hospice has copies. Any hospital has copies. There is, in fact, a federal law that requires hospitals to ask you when you come to the hospital if you have an advance directive or if you'd like to create one, and they can give you material. That is, of course, not the right time to do it. You should do it before you come to the hospital. But hospitals have it. Arbor Hospice has it. They're easy to get. You can find them online.
Okay. And then once I complete it, what do I do with it?
The thing you don't do is put it in your safety deposit box.
Okay. Probably what most people want to do.
That's what most people think. It's an important document. I'll put it away, and then of course you can't get it. What you do is you make sure the person you named as your advocate knows that they have been named. In Michigan, they actually have to accept that responsibility.
Okay.
You make sure you've talked to your family, and you make sure that you give a copy to your primary care doctor, and if you're comfortable, to the hospital that you typically use.
Okay, and so the key piece here is to have the conversation early and often, really.
Yes.
Get it written down, and make sure that you're comfortable with the decisions you've made so that your family can be comfortable in speaking for you on your behalf.
Yes.
And I think the point, Gloria, that Ed made about making sure that the person that you have assigned is going to honor your wishes, because that is a very important conversation and a very important question to make sure that they are comfortable.
Right. And you have to be flexible. It's difficult to predict the future. So I have one case where a woman said, I never want to be on a ventilator. And then she got an aspiration pneumonia. Well, if you're on a ventilator for 3 days, you can get off, you can be just fine, you can return to your status quo. We put her on a ventilator anyway, even though her advance directive said don't do that, because we thought she wasn't thinking about it the right way. When she woke up, she said, oh, I guess I should have written, don't put me on a ventilator if there's no reasonable medical opportunity to get off the ventilator.
Right.
So people have to think about being flexible in these documents.
Well, that's true, and I've seen that in two ways, both of the scenarios that you're describing. I had a family once who the wife, and she was a younger person in her early 40s, decided not to have her spouse be the person who was going to enforce those care wishes, because she knew that he was not going to be able to follow her wishes.
Yes.
And so her best friend, from childhood, was still involved and agreed to be that person and be on the power of attorney. So that was an important piece. The other is advanced care directive that I saw recently that spelled out, I want life-sustaining treatment if recovery is possible, and I don't want life-sustaining treatment if it is not possible and I would be dependent on a ventilator for the remainder of my life. I had not seen it broken out that way, but it sure did help the family as they were trying to decide with an elderly mom on a vent.
Yeah.
And the thought of having to put her back on the vent, what did she want? Now she was, even though she had this written down, she was still able to communicate it. And again, for our viewers, a reminder that it just helps the family to know what you want. In this case, the patient was still able to communicate it, but it helped her to know that her kids already knew what she wanted.
So two things. If the patient is still able to communicate, this document has no legal effect at all.
Right.
It only goes into effect when you are unable to communicate. And second, those are great examples. The reason they're great examples is because what people have done is thought about their values. If I'm going to be totally dependent on artificial nutrition, hydration, and respiration, and I won't be able to meaningfully interact with my family anymore, and there's no reasonable medical likelihood that I will return to a cognitive state, then I just want comfort care.
Right.
The other thing is, when you write one of these, it doesn't mean that your doctor abandons you.
Yeah, that's a good
You
point.
still get the care that you need, but it is comfort care because other care is going to be futile for restoring your pre-existing condition.
Right, you're going to get the right care
Right.
at the right time,
right
and I
time.
think that's an important piece. Well, thank you, both of you, for coming this evening to discuss this important topic. I think it's something, as we get ready for National Healthcare Decision Day on April 16th, is timely, and hopefully reminds folks not to wait until it's a crisis to have the conversation. So we've been talking about advanced care directives, and I want to point out that Arbor Hospice uses the 5 Wishes advanced care planning document, and this is a free tool here in the community to help you identify what your wishes are. The 5 Wishes booklet outlines who you want to take care of you, what kind of treatment you want and what you don't want. Sometimes that's just as important. How comfortable you want to be, how you want to be treated, and what you want your loved ones to know. And I think that 5 Wishes booklet it's just invaluable. In honor of National Healthcare Decisions Day, Arbor Hospice is hosting a free presentation about healthcare wishes with a panel of renowned experts that will share their experiences in working with our medical and legal systems. And that panel will include Ed Goldman and 2 other community physicians. The discussion will take place on Tuesday, April 17th, 2012, from 7 to 8 p.m. at the Glacier Hills Manor here in Ann Arbor. Arbor Hospice is also hosting free community workshops each month about advanced directives, and these workshops will explain to the community the importance of completing an advanced directive and explain how to complete the 5 Wishes booklet and provide everybody with a free copy of the tool. And so you'll see on the screen a variety of locations and times, and we encourage the community to come out and learn more about 5 Wishes. You can also, as Ed referenced earlier, you can visit the agingwithdignity.org website to download a free copy of 5 Wishes if you want to complete it online. For more information about Arbor Hospice and our upcoming presentations, please visit arborhospice.org or call us anytime at 800-992-2273.